this special episode of Frequency Matters, the RF and Microwave Update series. I'm Pat Hindle, and I'm here with Karim Oak, Product Line Director at Analog Devices. Welcome, Karim.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for having me.
So Analog Devices has products covering the whole radio signal chain, including FR1 and FR2 frequencies. And we've talked a little bit about the sub-6 gigahertz bands, but what are you seeing in the 5G market for millimeter wave applications?
It's been very welcome to see that the near-term use cases are becoming a lot more grounded. That's what I'll start with. There's less of the autonomous cars, remote surgery that eventually might be monetizable real applications for the operators and other entities to go after. But as in terms of immediate revenue sources, we just don't see them as realistic items to pursue in the next two or 3 years. So we've been very pleased to see that the use cases are focusing more on the fixed wireless access and industrial use cases, which have a more concrete line of sight to revenue right now, as well as an expansion in the next 2 to 5 years. Specifically, we're seeing that operators are a lot more focused on fixed wireless access, which we think will drive revenue streams in the next 2 to 3 years, in addition to their quote-unquote traditional business that they have. So this will be followed by an expansion of the mobility use case with industry and private use cases to follow. Similar to some previous discussions we've had, there will be a fixed and nomadic application of millimeter wave 5G at first, which will then be followed by the mobile use cases more widely deployed. As we all know and have seen in the last couple of years, the penetration is in the early innings. So it's primarily limited to developed economies with the means to spend more on this higher frequency band version of the network. But we're also seeing it expand. And over time, as the costs come down, we see the uptake actually going up worldwide. We're seeing an expanded deployment of fixed wireless access using 5G in FR2 supplementing the continued mobile rollout. So there has been a clear communication actually from leading operators in the US that I'm sure you've also seen, where there's a focus in fixed wireless access both for sub-6 gigahertz to start and then over time migrating over to FR2 as an added network resource. This allows them to generate new revenue streams using existing airwaves that they have already paid for. And there's also a significant growth in the fixed wireless access forecasts in the US first and worldwide next, which we're also actually seeing in our revenue profile that we're shipping into the market. And this is consistently by whether you ask the OEMs, the analysts, or our customers, which are the operators. In a macro sense, I think FR2 is interesting because it allows the operators to decouple the quality of service, the QoS concerns, on delivering a good mobile experience to their existing customers on their existing spectrum from delivering a fat broadband data pipe with low latency to customers in their homes. So it actually decouples the linkage between the sub-6 gigahertz spectrum and the FR2 spectrum. So it's a great tool for managed network operators to attack cable companies' turf, while cable companies are actually doing the reverse to MVNOs and trying to build up their subscriber counts. So it's really has been an interesting few years, and we're excited to see what's next.
So how is ADI bringing value to the 5G millimeter wave market, and where do you continue to invest?
The FR2 band is a critical next step in the evolution of the radio access network, where ADI is already heavily integrated into the ecosystem. We have extensive business over a lot of the generations from the first cellular networks out to the current one, and even looking at 6G, as you well know. And specifically to the millimeter wave space, the deep expertise from the legacy Hittite acquisition, which had deep exposure into the point-to-point and defense business in spectrum covering DC to 100 gigahertz and even higher, has brought a lot of expertise that's necessary to execute well in these FR2 bands. In addition, coupled with the Linear Tech and Maxim acquisitions, which have happened in the last several years, Those have added significantly expanded depth and breadth around the power and mixed signal portfolio to truly enable our customers, as we like to say, from DC to light, from bits to beams, nanowatts to kilowatts, and from sensor to cloud. So we're continuing to invest to push the performance envelope and the integration envelope in this millimeter wave 5G market. We have 2 generations of front-end ICs currently released, IC families, targeting the millimeter wave 5G market. The first one is in SiGe, the second more recent one is in CMOS, and the third one that's on the way that we will be more publicly referring to in the coming several months. We're actually sampling our first family of CPE, the customer premises equipment ICs, in right now, which we will actually be talking a bit more in Microwave Journal in the coming weeks as well. These are 2 ICs which integrate the beamforming and the multi-channel frequency conversion on a single die, covering the entire 24 to 43 gig space in only 2 part numbers. So this is just one example of how ADI is continuing to invest across the board, not only on the ICs, but also in surrounding IP, which is just as critical in this market, in things like antenna IP, supporting hardware and software from IF to the beams, or even down to the digital domain into the beams, for an all-in-one single supplier solution that's simple and reliable.
So what technologies and tools does ADI have that differentiates your products from others?
I would actually lump them under the ADI's millimeter wave IC design heritage that has helped us lead in the millimeter wave space. I would point out a few overarching key themes that are specific to this market that truly help us stand out. We're always going after the widest RF bandwidth, the best power consumption that we can get to hit that bandwidth, try to get the market-leading linearity out of our up-down converters and beamformers that form the crux of a millimeter wave RU. In addition to that, we underpin that with our vast portfolio of ICs, both the portfolio width and the portfolio breadth, addressing the entire BOM, be it power ICs, frequency generation, filtering components, switches, as well as non-IC IP, which would be EM IP, in-house test and packaging, where ADI has all of that in-house and doesn't have to rely on any outside vendors. And on top of that, our supply chain resilience, which comes through scale and which also comes through having delivered successfully into this market for over half a century. So specific to my market, the millimeter wave radios, the front end encompasses the up-down converters and beamformers as the key piece of an FR2 radio unit. And these could also include analog and hybrid beamformers and integrated customer premises equipment ICs, which are the up-down converter and beamformer and the LO function integrated into an IC that addresses all of the FR2 bands. So we've taken a generational approach, similar to some of the other folks, where we strive for significant improvement from generation 1 through 3, is where we are so far in every family that we take to market. We have been, as I mentioned, our first product family was on SiGe, and the second is on CMOS, with the third one also continuing down that path. We have been very pleased to see that the first CMOS front-end family we built has exceeded the incumbent multi-generation families in linear power, power efficiency, and beamformer integration, where we were the first vendor to get to the market with a 16-channel integrated beamformer with dual polarization covering the entire 24 to 47 gig 5G FR2 bands. So without the deep domain expertise that ADI has built over the last several decades, it could take other companies in the industry several more generational iterations to get to the point that we have been able to hit with the first CMOS family, which is our Gen 2, as well as our upcoming CMOS family, which is going to be our Generation 3. So we feel this is one major way where we're able to save our customers design time and de-risk their development into the market, where time to market is everything. One specific example is we haven't ever had to divide up the 5G band just to get the performance that's necessary. We were seeing that some of our competition was looking at very narrow band ICs just to hit the performance. So we're very happy to see that the rest of the industry seems to be catching up, and there are now 8-channel beamformers announced, and we expect even larger channel count integrations. And we're also seeing that wider band beamformers are starting to be announced. So it's a good thing for the industry, for the IP to be more broadly out there. So it's taking a step back from the ICs. We also invest heavily in reference platforms, which are completely built in-house. These include everything from the ground up that excludes the board substance, which could be Rogers, Itera, whatever, and the passive SMTs and the connectors. So everything outside of that is fully in-house, done at ADI, including the over-the-air testing, the packaging expertise, the quality, and the EM piece of the puzzle. And taking another step back again, we also invest heavily into the software stack, where we're working on digital pre-distortion IP that we have rolled out with a few customers. We're working on online array calibration IP, which allows the customers to calibrate the RUs, the beamformers, not only once in the factory, as several other companies also do, but in real time in the field, that cover a lot of the parts in the loop as part of the digitally assisted RF theme. So we have been able to build the software stack on market-leading analog hardware that truly makes up for a differentiated solution. And finally, in line with the full signal chain approach, if we take one more step from the antenna to the digital side, so to speak, we also have released a lot of IP in the transmit-receive chipsets on ADC DAC front, where under the MXFE family, we're providing direct RF transmit and receive ICs with an instantaneous bandwidth support up to 1.6 gigahertz bandwidth. These are basically scalable, software-defined radios that are already designed into several tier 1 customers as well as smaller customers. And the reason I bring that up is that bandwidth is that 1.6 gig IP basically makes the front end future-proof from a 5G NR bandwidth perspective by covering up to two 800 megahertz channels at the same time. So it's really an end-to-end approach all the way from the digital domain out to the air interface, where we always go for market leadership.
Yeah, Analog Devices does have a very broad portfolio, and you have a lot of highly integrated products, so you really do cover the whole spectrum. So with all these supply issues and market instability, how is ADI helping customers with those challenges?
So we've been happy to see that our resilience through scale in a supply-constrained environment has really helped us versus what we would have had to deal with if we were a much smaller company. So we've been working intensely on capacity allocation and having a flexible supply chain to be able to react to some of these industry whiplash events, as we've seen several in the last 2 years. First with a wind down, then with a sharper than expected uptick that is still reverberating across the rest of the supply chain even now. So our focus is to have continuity of supply through scale as well as through careful forecasting. And some of the specific steps we've taken in that regard is that we have multiple test sites that we can choose for most, if not all, of our IP. We have multiple assembly sites. We have long-term supplier agreements which de-risk the supply chain and guarantee ADI capacity several years in advance. And this de-risks our customers' execution, not only on the technical side by delivering a market-leading IP, but also by de-risking their execution on the operational side by making sure that they have the parts that they need when they need them. So it's really a wide spectrum of things that we do on the operations side that does get easier due to ADI scale.
Well, thank you so much, Karim, for talking with me today about the 5G millimeter wave market. We hope to have you back sometime and check in down the road with you. To our viewers, you can find more videos at videos.microwavejournal.com. Thanks for watching today.
Thank you, Pat.